who's for a history lesson? After Thrustmaster released the SF1000 to rave reviews, ours included, we absolutely love this thing, their next release, the TGT2, didn't get such a warm reception. In the interim, Fanatec rocked up with their long-awaited CSL-DD and blew the market to bits. I ended that review saying, the competition have got a lot of catching up to do. Then Thrustmaster released a product roadmap which looked to cover the rest of 2021 and potentially into 2022, one of those products being a direct drive wheelbase. Finally. Might it go up against the CSL-DD in terms of price? We'll have to wait and see. But one thing we didn't have to wait and see was the Thrustmaster T248 Hybrid Drive wheel that is paired with the T3PM pedals. So, elephant in the room, what exactly is hybrid drive when it's at home? Well, this base combines both gear and belt-driven systems to deliver 70% more force feedback than 2015's T150, a wheel still going strong today. But this isn't going to go up against the T150 on the market since it's double the price. Instead, it's more than likely going to go up against the likes of the Logitech G923 in terms of price points and features. So, let's take a closer look. In the box, you'll get the T248 wheel and base itself, the T3PM pedals, a power supply, a USB-C to A cable, a replacement spring for your brake pedal, and the two-part mounting apparatus for sticking the wheel on your desk. First things first, yes to USB Type-C. That's going to get a tick in my book every single time because there are still companies out there making products with micro USB, so nice work, Thrustmaster. The base itself is surprisingly small, reminiscent of almost the CSL-DD size relative to a wheel, but the base and the wheel is, as far as I can see on the exterior, pretty much entirely made of plastic. Strong plastic, it doesn't at all feel flimsy, but still plastic nonetheless. The buttons across the wheel are placed nicely and feel fine, though these rocker switches on either side had a lot less travel than I expected. They don't require much movement to actuate, so they are quick, but you could accidentally catch it if you're reaching for another button. The circumference of the rim features a slightly soft touch material with a little bit of padding, which is nice enough, but the standout feature of the T248 is this dashing little display atop the center of the wheel. This straightforward screen can be customized to your liking, be it showing your revs, gear, position, lap times, or speed, and the rectangular segments on the bottom of the display represent your rev lights across every numerical setting. You can even customize the direction these lights go in, left to right, right to left, out to in to out, or just switch them off entirely. But the best thing about this screen is it's all done on the fly using the buttons on the wheel itself. Not only can you customize the display, you can also change other settings such as the compatibility mode between PC, PS4 and PS5. Sorry Xbox users, this isn't going to work for you. You can also change the degrees of rotation, force feedback settings, whether the pedals are mounted normally or inverted, and view information about the firmware and connected peripherals. Since this is a pre-release review, there's not as many games supporting it right now as there will be, but it seems to be Thrustmaster are going to get this thing supported on basically everything. The included pedals are the T3PM model, which look very similar to the TLCM pedals and feature similar magnetic operation, but with no load cell and less metal construction. Though solid once more, plastic strikes again. The underside features 5 threaded holes if you want to mount these pedals to a rig, and 3 meager feeling rubber pads to at least try and keep it sturdy if you're putting them on the floor. Very much recommend having these pedals up against a wall if they're under your desk, because otherwise they are very slippy, be it on carpet or a hard floor. The pedals feature cable channels so you can output the RJ12 connected to either side of the base, which is nice, and the underside of the wheelbase itself features little cable channels to keep things neat, with a built-in Velcro strap to keep everything together, which is really nice. You've also got a shifter socket if you're wanting to drive stick or whack a handbrake on too. With everything plugged in, we put the hybrid drive system to the test, and to be honest, it feels pretty good. With the expected 900 degrees of rotation, the mix of belt and gear gives the force feedback some great clarity. Going over curbs feels spectacular, and it does have a little punch as and when it needs to. The steering feels precise enough, but it is pretty heavy overall. Playing with settings in-game did decrease some of the feedback, but the weighty stiffness remained. But if you're alright with some weighty stiffness, well hey, then you're absolutely fine. But if you're wanting a bit more kick out of the force feedback, that is where the 3 built-in force feedback modes come into play. FFB1 outputs exactly how the game wants the wheel to, whereas FFB2 and 3 gives it just a little bit more sauce. Look, here's a graph. The pedals feel fine under normal usage, but as I mentioned earlier, you do get a heavier spring in the box, so you can tweak the pressure on the pedal using a mix of the stock silver spring, the black spring included, and taking out and adding in the little white spacer for a total of 4 different strengths. Out of the box, the brake pedal is fine, I guess. Smooth travel with a constant resistance, but if you're wanting a better feeling brake, definitely swap out the stock spring for the black one with the cushion too for arguably the best feeling. As said earlier though, if you're not up against a wall, your pedals might slide around a bit, so probably the stock brake would be best, or even taking out the little cushion to make it even lighter. But the fact you get these options out of the box is really good. Nice to see these weren't aftermarket products you had to pay for. However, things aren't all peaches and cream for the T248. This hybrid system has led to an almost scratchy feeling upon rotation, which almost brings longevity into question. The amount this wheel will actually kick you back is okay, but if you're wanting a wheel that's going to properly throw you around, it's not going to be this one. Also, as mentioned, the build quality is really sturdy, but it is entirely plastic from what I can see. If we're going to put this up against the likes of the Logitech G923 and Thrustmaster T150, both of those have more metal in their construction, and that's with the T150 being half the price. They both have metal shifter pedals, for example, but the T248 doesn't. This leads me quite nicely onto what I dislike most about this wheel. These shifter paddles might have buzzwords and magnetic gobbledygook aplenty to put these across as something truly special, but upon using them, I would go as far as to say they put me off this wheel as a whole. They're made entirely of plastic. The force needed to actuate them is pretty high for paddles, I'd say, and worst of all, listen to this. Ooh. If you're playing in a room by yourself with your headphones on, you'll barely notice. But if, say, you've got a rig set up in your living room separate from your usual TV, or you're thinking about picking up some of these for a sim racing venue, be warned that these shifters are obnoxiously loud. To quote this thing's product page, the T248 paddle shifters allow for super fast gear shifting with clear and precise activation feel, 30 milliseconds response time. This proprietary technology is based on a contactless system of magnets without any friction. Now, maybe this is me being really picky, but the terms super fast and contactless without any friction shouldn't, in my opinion, result in these ridiculously loud paddle shifters. It is honestly the most disappointing part of this wheel. Not only that, but the position of the display on the wheel isn't actually great either. If you are on a rig with the wheel visually a bit higher up in your periphery, then it might be more useful. But if you've got it on a desk like I assume most of you would, you'll barely notice it. Plus, since this is a very simple LCD dot matrix display, the vertical viewing angle has a bit of a dead zone, and on average, it looks to be from about the exact angle you'll be sitting. So much like the SF1000's gorgeous display, the usability is almost gimmicky. Now, I'm not saying its inclusion is a bad thing by any stretch. The on-the-fly adjustments are fantastic, especially if you're on a console, but much like a screen on basically any wheel, it may not be all that useful depending on how and if you use it. Okay then, let's get to the price. The T248 and T3PM pedals together in the box will set you back £299.99. Now, let's put that against the aforementioned pairing of the Thrustmaster T150 and Logitech G923, priced at £149.99 and £349.99 respectively. Now, as said earlier, the T248 is really only going up against the G923 in terms of price and features, but we're going to put it up against the T150 as well, since they mention it so much in the marketing. So, more power from the T248 over the T150, and definitely more robust, heavy feedback compared to the G923. Build quality is almost out of the question since the T150 is about half the price, even though it still has metal shifters unlike this guy. But this round goes to the G923 since it feels far more premium in its construction, with metal across the face of the wheel, shifters, and the lovely leather rim. Plus, the pedals for the G923 have got more metal in their construction compared to the T3PMs that come with this guy, but I will give button placement to the T248 over the G923. It feels a lot more straightforward and similar to other wheels across all brands. The G923 kind of went a bit wacky on their placement. Button feel is almost negligible, I guess. They both feel fine. As said earlier, both of these visual flourishes suffer from the not exactly in a great place syndrome, so no points there. But when it comes around to software, Thrustmaster have a firmware updater, but everything else for this can be done on the fly, as said, whereas with the G923, you'll have to use the sometimes temperamental G-Hub. So this is pretty much driverless, and I think you probably could use this driverless, but maybe not, so points to this guy. Finally, I want to talk about how these wheels look. This is almost an irrelevant point to some, but not all. I'm definitely one who takes aesthetics into serious account. I mean, have you seen how I shoot my hardware reviews? This is definitely a point you can take or leave. This isn't something that should necessarily swing your personal decision, but I selfishly want to talk about it anyway. It might just be me, but Thrustmaster's visual style makes their products look a lot cheaper than they are. They feel great, but in my eyes don't always look the part. You might think that the T248 looks like the Mutt's nuts, but personally, I'm not in that camp. The thick silver and brushed plastic front cheapens what could be a truly gorgeous wheel, and the stodgy paddles don't help either. A nicer looking and feeling rim probably wouldn't go amiss, and those rubber feet on the pedals need a good talking to. But that's just me, I just wanted to vent a little, but visuals aside, this thing is pretty damn good. So is the Thrustmaster T248 worth it? It's not exactly a budget wheel, that's why the T150 exists, but if you're wanting something that's not super entry level but also not to begin a very serious esports career, it's definitely a solid choice. It's a robust wheel with great force feedback, fantastic on-the-fly control over a bunch of settings, and the button placement is bang on. Though the steering is heavy and sort of scratchy, and the less said about these big clunkers the better. Pitting it against what is arguably its main rival, the G923, it's a toss-up, personal preference if you will. The G923 is £50 more expensive, but it is pretty much always on sale, so keep that in mind. But if you like how it looks, want to work those arms playing Dirt Rally 2.0 and have a need to bling up your desk with a little screen, the T248 is the way to go. And that is my review of the Thrustmaster T248. Thank you to Thrustmaster, by the way, for sending this our way for review, and thank you for you two for coming by to say hello and show your lovely faces. You can go back in the cupboard for some games in the future. You can go to the back of the wardrobe for another few years. You serve me well. But anyway, are you tempted by the T248, or would you be more swung towards the G923 or even towards the T150? Let me know in the comment section below. Please do subscribe to the Traxion channel if you haven't already. Ring the bell for notifications. Do you want to see more stuff like this? Hit that big red button, it would mean a lot to us. But until I see you again, thank you very much for watching. Keep it pinned. I'll see you next time.